Hello, welcome to the front hall. David Bradley here. I will be your host, and today this should be pretty quick. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about the Vic-20. Up until very recently, I believed that there were two boards that the Vic-20 came from. One was the original two-prong. One was the one when they switched over so they could use the Commodore 64 power supply, which used the DIN plug. It did. And I figured, well, that's it. That's the two. That's what they did. But recently, when I opened up a Vic-20 that I got, I found a completely different board. And it looked like this. It did. The chips are all facing a completely different direction than the others. And there is no little box for the video port, not port, for the video chip, like a little thing to protect from RF interference and all. It's like, wow, this is unique. I've never seen this before. Anyway, so since then, I ended up with another batch of stuff. There was another one of these, and then recently, another fellow bestowed a third one on to me. Now this one, as I look at the back, I'm not sure if it has damage or not. Certainly, a couple of 2114 RAM chips have been removed from it. Now, does that mean that the board is bad? Well, I don't know. Does it mean it can be saved? Well, I don't know. It has all the rest of the major chips in sockets, so I guess what I need to do is find one of my other Vic-20s with a similar board. One of them I know that I have is working, the other one is not. And I need to swap out the chips one by one by one by one by one and see what I can see. Now, there is actually another board that I was not aware of for the Vic-20. There was the cost-reduced board. And this one fits nicely in the case for the Vic-20. And when you get a Vic-20 and you first, turn it on and do your thing, you would never know really which board, except of course if it has a two-prong plug, it's early. If it has, like the 64 DIN plug, it's later. But I had no idea that the cost reduce or cost reduction or cost savings or whatever board was in, and it was maybe, I don't know, inch and a half, or wait, let's think metrically, maybe 30 millimeters shorter, and it had an adapter, so it would still fit in the same case. And instead of a whole bunch of RAM chips, it had many less. And once again, it was done so the board would be smaller, there would be less parts. They could make it cheaper, because little by little by little, of course, they kept dropping the price of the Vic-20. So here we have another one. Now, I suppose what I'm going to do firstly, when I get into this, is, and as I look at the back, I do see some dark spots near where the chips were removed. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with, parts got to come from somewhere. For example, I had a Vic-20 that had smoked long ago, and I used the RAM chips, or some of the RAM chips from that, to save a PET, and I think 2 other disk drives, including the very first 2031 my brother and I ever got. So sometimes things just got to be sacrificed. So now, I don't know the history of this board. I don't know why these 2 RAM chips were removed. I suppose what I will do is I will test the chips, the other chips that are socketed in another machine, see what's what, and then decide, like, if they're all working and everything seems fine, maybe I will put sockets into this board and see if the board comes alive. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? So it could end up being for parts. It could be something to put on display, maybe frame and say, look, it's an original Vic-20. It's funny, a lot of these ones here, the early ones that came from Japan, that did not have the cover to shield us all from the harmful rays of the RF modulation and and interference. They would have a sticker about here that said when they were made. This one does not have that, so I don't know of its history. It has a little thing over here that it's just like a sticker with a line through it. I don't know. Anyway, so another Vic-20. I never really, way back when, I never really had a Vic-20 because I went from the PET to the Commodore 64. I don't regret this. But more and more lately, I have Vic-20s, but more and more I've been kind of working and tinkering on them. And recently I sent a couple away to Rudy of Rudy's Retro Intel so that he could have a better chance of fixing what was a very pesky machine. And sadly, I don't think it worked out. But I had to try, and who knows? Someday maybe the board will live, or maybe it's for parts. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will tinker on it from time to time if I ever get a chance. We'll see. Anyway, there is much history. And you know what? As much as I know that there are four different versions, and there's probably subtle variations of the Vic-20. There could be more. I don't know. This is all I've ever seen. But up until recently, I'd only ever seen two. There was one fellow he wrote recently, and he had a Vic-20, and he said he didn't think the one he had in England had a cartridge port, that he just used cassettes. And maybe this is true. I don't know. I've never seen a Vic-20 without the cartridge ports. But once again, they made millions. There were different versions. There were different variations, different gyrations. So I don't know. Anyway, let me know if you know of others. He may have had a cartridge port, but just had no cartridges, so it really wasn't a factor. And 40 years later, after only using cassette, it just might be blocked out. I don't know. Anyway, this too needs to go upstairs to be sorted and figured and tested, etc., etc., etc. We've lost the pet again. Oh dear. This pet, I don't know if you can see that, it kind of comes back. There is an issue. I will turn it off. I will wait. I will turn it on. It may come back. It may not. It did not. Okay, I'll just turn it off. Anyway, yes, I need to do more things. I have the cover off the back of the monitor. Anyway, so more experiments. And funny, I did put a bunch of cartridges up for sale on Kijiji. Nobody has written. Nobody seems interested, but I'm not going to give up, because all it takes is, of course, somebody out there to say, yeah, I'm interested. So anyway, as with anything, I find if you're going to sell things online, list a lot of things. Don't be discouraged when you don't get a whole lot of action, because you never know when somebody who is off on vacation or just hasn't been on Kijiji, but suddenly does that search saying, hey, Vic-20 games or Vic-20 cartridges, they might suddenly say, oh my word, look at that. Maybe. You never know. But like anything, it's funny, I worked in an advertising agency long ago in the summer, one summer, when I was in high school. And the whole thing about, advertising is if you don't advertise, people don't know. Well, if you don't put things up for sale that you want to sell, no one will know. But there was a thing, I remember reading it. There was a story of this guy who had a hot dog stand, and he did very well. And along came, I think, his son, who was like some advertising, or I don't know, some bigwig, something. He said, Dad, he he had signs up, he had things, he was at the side of the road, he did all this great stuff. And they said, oh, this is a horrible economy. What are you doing? You can't do this. So, of course, he took down his signs, and he took down his this, he took down his that, and took down his flags and all the other things that would bring people there. And gee, sure enough, guess what? Business dried up. He said, "You're right. We are in a terrible economy." Anyway, if you have something that you're thinking of selling, or that you've decided you're going to sell or try to sell, then list it. Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, even eBay. I used to do quite a bit on eBay. I have not for quite a while. Maybe I will again. Maybe. Certainly eBay gets a worldwide audience. We'll see. I just don't know. But anyway, if you have something great and you want to sell it, then you got to tell people. You do. Anyway, I will take this board upstairs along with other things, and I will see about testing and tinkering and finding out what it is that there is to find out. And maybe next episode I will look at, there was a big Rubbermaid container that, once again, I've been looking at for maybe a year and a half, but I've never investigated. So maybe the next episode is the time. We shall see. But for the moment, this vintage Vic-20 board will go upstairs, and it will be assessed and figured and sorted. And, is it good? Is it bad? Is it for parts? Certainly the power switch feels really good, and I have another one that I've been using where the power switch doesn't feel really good. So if the board is in fact dead, I don't feel bad about stealing. Oh, there's no fuse in it. Anyway, whatever, we shall see. We shall. One nice thing I do like about a lot of these things is that the fuse is really simple. It's a little, tube with metal on both ends and glass in the middle. And it's hard not to notice, and hard, and you might not, if you look at it, you might not be able to tell it's blown, but it's certainly easy to replace. No diddling around. And certainly if you're taking any machine like this, or a 64, and connecting it to a monitor, and you do that, you just turn it on. If you don't see just any sign of anything on, especially the 1701 or the 1702, or some of the other Commodore monitors, then there's a good chance that power isn't happening. And check the fuse. Yeah, mind you, the switch could be bad, power supply could be bad, there could be cold solder joint here and there and everywhere, but if you don't even see the hint of a tweak, of a flash, of a something, then probably there's either you're not connected, the monitor isn't on, you haven't plugged in the power supply or something. But usually on a monitor like this, there's something that says, hello, even just a little something. Or if you have the sound hooked up, you might hear a little difference in what you're hearing with just the monitor on. So we'll see what we see when we see. Anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. We'll see you again soon back in the front hall and perhaps other places as well. We'll see about that. Until we meet again, have a lovely, lovely day. Bye for now. All right. What are we doing? Okay. Vic-20 in the box of things to go upstairs. And stops the recording.